What's the point of albums in music?
If you've ever listened to a piece of music before, it's most likely been packaged in a number of ways. Firstly, there are single songs, or simply singles.
When I listen to an album, it's literally because it feels like that's the way this batch of music was intended to listen to. It feels like it's a audible story that the specific musician is trying to tell, and if not that, just like an emotional roller coaster of what they're trying to put you through. There is a specific strategy involved with how you order your music, with the intention to either hook the viewer or listener, or give the listener the best possible experience on how to listen to this music. And as for singles, it's just like, yo, man, here's a single to promote my upcoming fucking album or EP. It's good. More to come.
As the name suggests, is just that one song you're currently listening to. Nothing exists before or after said single song, as it's a single. You get it. There are also extended plays, or EPs, which are usually a collection of around 3 to 6 tracks, coming to an average.
See, like, okay, when it comes EPs versus albums is so fucking weird, because I forget there's like a specific number of minutes where it's like, okay, this number of minutes it's officially an album versus this number of minutes it's an EP. Let me Google that shit really quick. Hold on. So an EP is generally defined as a release with 1 to 6 tracks under 30 minutes total, while an album is typically over 30 minutes. Brother, I feel like it's been more than once where a motherfucker will call like an over 30-minute batch of music an EP. I feel like it probably also takes in consideration. Like, okay, you're not going to have 4 songs that are 10 minutes long, that's 40 minutes, and say this is a full fucking album. So many albums these days sound like a bunch of singles put together, bring back cohesive albums. Yeah, especially with like attention and like TikTok music in mind, right? It does feel like, yeah, we're just going to put out, which is fine, right? Like, obviously, put out the best music you possibly can. But I feel like if you are like, every single song in your album has the intention of like, it's like engineered for like short form algos, it literally, it just lacks soul. You know, there's no soul, there's no love. That, like, an album is no longer an experience because you're trying to engineer it for a specific audience, because this is like the meta on how to be the biggest you possibly can be.
Coming to an average runtime between 15 and 30 minutes. And then there are long plays, or LPs, which are most commonly referred to in today's language as albums. A collection of usually 8 to 15 songs that can also have a runtime of about 30 to 80 minutes on average. But in the modern day...
Goddamn, an 80-minute, bro. If an album is 80 minutes, I'm not one seshing that shit. There's a point where it's like, bro, 80 minutes? What are we doing here? No, like I don't care how much I love this band. I am not sitting there and listening to the same band for 80 minutes straight. Be so fucking for real. Make that bitch a double album. I am not sitting there 80 minutes of the same Are you fucking kidding me?
Of digital streaming, shorter attention spans, and an increasingly saturated music industry where anybody that has access to a computer with a DAW installed can freely upload their homemade music onto the internet for everyone and anyone to find and enjoy, why then are artists choosing to package their musical projects into albums? I mean, if you think about it, it would be so much easier, quicker, and more beneficial for the artist to just release single songs or...
Yes, okay, the SoundCloud era, right, which we were just talking about a little bit earlier, it felt like what they were doing, right? Because singles typically do better than full albums, right? When a band or an artist drops a single, everybody knows about it. That's like in that sphere. Versus an album, sure, people know about it, but they're less inclined to like sit there and listen to it front to back. So in the SoundCloud era, what they would do is just single, and then maybe like not put out 1 or 2 tracks, and then just like have that as like the bonus songs for the full album experience, right? So it feels like, for a marketing perspective, just dropping a bunch of singles for maximum exposure to then compile it into an album, it feels like that's the smarter move. But what that does is it literally takes away the storytelling potential and the magic that uh that you would find going into an album blindly. You know what I'm saying?
Quicker and more beneficial for the artist to just release single songs or shorter EPs rather than the longer album format. Not only will the time between each of your releases be shorter so you stay relevant in search engines for
I didn't even think about that. Oh my god, that is so fucking true. I didn't even think about like EPs being used in that way where it's like, damn, we haven't released something in such a long time. Let's just like sacrifice 3 songs of this upcoming album to stay relevant and like in the news. That's like fucking smart.
longer, but a lot of the streaming sites like Spotify now rely heavily on curated playlists consisting of multiple single songs based on popularity and total stream numbers. The looming hand of SEOs, digital algorithms, and changing listening habits of today's average music listener might just be the tip of the iceberg as to why more and more artists prioritize shorter musical projects rather than full-length albums. So the question then needs to be asked.
So before we get into that question that needs to be asked, I will say, while like trying to appeal to an algorithm is like extremely annoying, low key, it does feel like it's a double-edged sword, right? Because while it feels like music is becoming less genuine if artists are taking that like short form platform route, currently to be a musician, there has not been a better time, right? We were just talking about like the Spotify algorithm earlier. If you are an obscure fucking genre, if you're playing an obscure genre like fucking slamming brutal cock metal emo jazz fusion, right? There is a playlist for that. And a motherfucker that is passionate about that genre of music will find you, right? You have to do a lot less work nowadays to get your shit pushed.
What's the point of albums in music? Let's get one thing straight before we move on here. I personally am and will always be an album listener. But in saying that, I don't ever want to discourage or shame anyone if they prefer to just listen to singles or playlists when consuming music. It completely makes sense after all, especially considering the modern music listening landscape. And I'd be lying if I said I also didn't enjoy bumping a curated Spotify playlist like everybody else from time to time. After all, there's only so many house parties I can attend where I can play the full Death Consciousness album on the speaker from start to finish.
Bro, okay. If you're at a fucking party and you're like, yo, let me put on some Death Consciousness, I would kick that motherfucker. Get out of the fucking party, bro. What are you doing here? What? We're at a party. Huh? I'm putting on Swans at the function. Bitch, I will kick you out so fast. I will kick you out so fucking fast. Yes or no, because if your music is objectively good but doesn't pay attention to the algorithm, you're doomed. I don't know. You could find your audience, right? Especially like even if you're not playing the short form game. Okay, like Chase USA, right? I think he's a great example of someone where it doesn't feel like he manipulated his music for the algorithm, but he's like, yo, this is kind of a fire verse. Let me make a short out of it, and it worked. The Paradox, same thing, right? They're using short form platforms without making music specifically. Hot Mulligan, same thing. They're killing it on these short form platforms without keeping that algorithm in mind and are still absolutely dominating.
And still be invited back for the next party. But one thing I have noticed as a longtime music fan is that this idea of listening to a full album from start to finish is becoming less and less of a norm. I have a bunch of friends who struggle to listen to new artists at all, unless they happen to have a radio hit or heard their song from a famous TV show or movie or meme.
Yeah, because nobody cares. And that's just me ripping off the band-aid, right? Like the average person doesn't bother to look for a new band or look for like their genre of music. Like it really feels like I say this all the time, especially to people that don't listen to cool music, right? There is so much more than just like whatever the fuck is on the radio or like he said on TV or whatever, right? Like yeah, I love Bad Bunny. I listen to Bad Bunny. He came onto my playlist earlier today while I was doing like a photo shoot for my sister, right? And I enjoy that. But the thing is, like, it really feels like there is a specific subgenre of music curated for each individual person. However, I'm understanding that people don't want to put the effort to look for it because it does feel like a lot of work, right? Like it's like, oh fuck, I did fuck with that one song, especially like if you know nothing about the scene, right? Oh, I did fuck with that one metalcore song, but I don't know what metalcore is. I fucking look up metalcore. Turns out I fucked with Bad Omens. Why am I listening to Converge right now? You know what I'm saying? So it is work to discover bands and music like that you really, really enjoy. But when you find it, it just feels so fucking good and like you're at the right place. You know what I mean? Like there's no better feeling than finding a brand new band or song that you're like deeply in love with. You know?
Format, or unless they're given a particular short list of songs to listen to from a pre-existing fan of said artists. I've definitely been guilty of that last one. But no matter how big of a smash hit a single song may become, we've seen time and time again that in the long run, the best artists in the world are renowned for their particular album-based works. And that's simply because the album format in music has qualities that you just can't replicate in a single or EP format. One of the most fundamental reasons, I think, has to do with the fact that an album is a musician's complete artistic statement. Most albums, if done well, have some sort of structure, theme, or concept worked into it. These can be
To be honest, I fuck with concept albums. I'm gonna keep it a buck. The Black Parade, right? Huge concept album. Don't like it. Like it's okay, right? There's some bangers, but when it like if it's a concept album to the point where it's like very theatrical, I can't. I I can't do that shit. Arm's Length's recent album, I didn't like first listen. I gave it another listen, absolutely fell in love with. Right? And like it feels sometimes I do that where it's like I'm trying to understand this band or genre. It feels like I'm kind of forcing myself to like it, but in a way, you're not really forcing yourself to like it. You're just trying to understand, in turn, appreciate what other people like, or this band, and discover what is the appeal. Why do people like this? And I think that's rewarding, even if I can't force myself to like it. That's why, like, it feels like this video I'm gonna do is never gonna come, but like getting into black metal, right? I've been I've been saying I would do that video for so fucking long. I just haven't like found the time to do it. But I will do it, and I'm excited to because that is a genre I just cannot understand right now why people like fuck with it. And I'm so excited to learn what the appeal is because I've given it chances time and time and time again. I have not found one song that I like. I'm excited to learn what's up with that.
loosely woven themes that anybody with any level of functional empathy can relate to, like love, hate, life, and death, reaching all the
Oh
way
my
up
god, I love that album so much. A Crow Looked at Me. It is so, fellas, if you want to listen to something that like puts you on the edge, Mount Erie, A Crow Looked at Me. Oh, you listen to that shit, you might like find yourself in your car driving to Lowe's with the intentions of buying a rope and ladder. It is a rough listen. I listened to it once for a video I did. I do not have the balls to go back. It is that heartbreaking.
super deep concepts that can be approached from any multiple angle or perspective in open-ended ways, like an entire concept album that follows a narrative, cast of characters, and even a fantastical world like what you would experience in a book or a movie. Unlike a single or an EP, in albums, these themes can be explored far more in depth and lets the listener sink into said themes at a much deeper level of understanding. Technically, there's nothing stopping you from listening to Another Brick in the Wall Part 2 by Pink Floyd and say, oh wow, this is a catchy song with some funny lyrical ideas and a sick guitar solo at the end. But you can also instead choose to listen to the same song in the order that it appears on the Wall album and go, oh, well, this song is actually kind of depressing and meaningful now. And I understand that some may argue that by doing that, it can potentially, quote unquote, ruin a song. But I say, hey, blame the artist, not the genius annotation. Albums can also give a detailed description of the artist's current state of mind in powerful, vivid, or imaginative ways. Mount Erie's 2017 album, A Crow Looked at Me, is a haunting example. Using an extremely minimalist, skeletal, and depressing soundscape, the artist recounts the last few months he spent with his wife as he watches her pass away from.
Bro, I'm gonna spoil it a bit for anyone that's going to listen to it, like my nerdies are gonna listen to it. Bro, it is so fucking sad. And it is impressive how the motherfucker manages to put you into his uh he makes throwing away a toothbrush so deep and sad and depressing. It's rough. It's rough. It is rough.
From terminal cancer, counts the last few months he spent with his wife as he watches her pass away from terminal cancer. Although each of the individual tracks lay out these emotions of grief and sadness in different gut-punching ways, it's the act of following the entire album, and in turn the story, chronologically from start to finish, that gives you the full devastating picture the artist is trying to portray to the listener. Oh, and fair warning before you jump into this album if you're curious. This one really messed me up. Of course, not all themes and concepts are depressing in the world of albums. 2004's Food by
banger!
Master MC MF Doom is an album whose entire concept revolves around these food-related themes and uses clever double entendres to relate food to things like feuds in the rap community, the commercialization of shallow music in hip-hop, and even the importance of friendship. Doom himself described it as a concept album, quote, about the things you find on a picnic or at a picnic table, end quote. However you want to interpret that description is entirely up to you. Albums also allow artists to
Doom is the goal for alternative hip hop. The goal.
change up and experiment with certain
I love this video. This video is so fucking good.
sounds, styles, or even entire genres. A classic example of this is the Australian band King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard, who, although are primarily lumped into the garage rock and psychedelic rock genres, have also been known to dabble in genres like dream pop, progressive rock, boogie and roots rock, thrash metal, and even acid techno. What would otherwise seem like a strange detour for a collection of singles feels a lot more cohesive when there's an entire array of tracks to accompany the experimentation, giving fans of the artist more of a complete experience in a potential new venture for the artist. Of course, sometimes it doesn't quite land and is always a creative risk on the artist's part, but when it hits, you'll be wishing that they continue to go down that route for longer. Another aspect
Oh man, that's kind of cool, right? So going back to the Isles and Glaciers video I did today, right? A big point of it is like, okay, here's a perfect EP. Give it out to the public, never coming back, right? And it makes you itch, like you want more. You want more so fucking bad, and you're never getting it. You know you're never going to get a batch of music from this band that no longer exists, and it makes you want it more. So I've never listened to Lizard, and I see that name around all the time, but I think it's really cool how they managed to do that by simply just doing like, here's a genre of music we're never going to do again, or maybe once or twice, but you know, enjoy it for what it is and what it will ever be.
the power of albums that I think gets overlooked a lot is its nostalgic power. If you're anywhere around my age, specifically between the ages of 25 and 35, I'm sure that one look at any of these album covers will give you
Whoa! My favorite album of all time, right the fuck here. Right the fuck here, buddy. If you've never listened to this Death Cab album, right the fuck here. Holy jump scare of nostalgia. What the fuck, bitch? What the fuck? Yo, this is Unk's playlist right here.
strong sense of nostalgia in one way or another. It could be years, even decades since you last listened to an album from your youth, but I like to think that the amount of nostalgia it gives someone is far more powerful than any kind of single or EP, especially if you grew up buying CDs like I did. Although you might be quicker to remember one-hit wonders from your youth more than any singular album, I would argue that the nostalgia that entire albums give is far more personal to you and was probably material that helped shape you as a person back then. But it's not just about esoteric concepts like themes or nostalgia. Albums
That was me listening to Crunk Core earlier.
also
That
make
shit was Honk Shoe Core. Holy white. That was a very white set of albums. And they're iconic. Iconic.
physical impacts in the real world for artists and non-artists. Think of some of the most groundbreaking and evolutionary moments in music history. Nirvana's Nevermind, blurring the lines between pop appeal and the DIY mentality of the grunge movement. Public Enemy's It Takes a Nation of Millions to Hold Us Back, often being credited as one of the first conscious hip-hop albums that discuss sensitive topics about the black community in a brutal and truthful manner. Kraftwerk's Autobahn being the direct inspiration for practically every electronic song created after it. There's certainly more examples out there that I'm sure you and I can think of, but have you noticed that these are all full-length albums? Musicians and music enthusiasts understand the power of an
Oh my
album
fucking god. I'm gonna keep it a buck. I kind of forgot what the topic was about. And the way he just wrapped that shit back, like he tied it together, was so fucking good. He is not wrong, right? Like when you think about memorable artists, when you think about memorable music, it's never really a single, right? Like a single is like, oh yeah, like that was a banger, that was a cool song, but it doesn't really hold, it's not like a movement of any sort. It's like, yeah, that was a cool song for the time, but like when you think about like an artist that did something big, it literally is coupled up with, yeah, this was an important album, not this was an important single. While you can argue what, like, yeah, this, like for example, he just said Nevermind, right? Teen Spirit, very important single, right? That put Nirvana on the on the map, in turn the underground on the map, right? And paved the way for so many like underground artists. It's just not really the same, right? Like for example, I just said A Crow Looked at Me, very depressing album, really good album because the storytelling was insane, the way he put you in the shoes was insane, right? But I'm not gonna fuck around and be here like say like, oh yeah, that Toothbrush song specifically, that shit changed the game. No, that the storytelling, I wouldn't say change the game, but like the storytelling of listening to the album front to back is what truly was the masterpiece, not just a specific song. You know what I mean? Melee is so peak. I love Melee.
its exploration of themes, concepts, and styles, and thus are more likely to take inspiration from projects like this rather than any singular song. It makes a musical
Also, sorry, not to pause so quickly, but like another thing, right? When you see like a band is influenced by another band, right? Like a good example is like typically people point at Black Sabbath as the birth of like specific subgenres of metal. Black metal, I think, is influenced from Black Sabbath, and so is I could be wrong, like Doom, I believe too. I don't remember right now. But like the only way you can become influenced by something is if you dug through all those songs and found a song you liked and enjoyed and branched off of it, right? People listened to Newfound Glory and it was like one specific song, I forget which one it was, that wasn't even really poppin', that a bunch of easycore bands took influence off of, and you can only do that if you listen to a batch of music and explore more than just singles.
statement made by an artist that much more impactful when it's more than a couple of individual unconnected songs. Now, up until this point, it might sound like the idea of singles and even EPs are quote-unquote ruining the reputation and sanctity of musical expression, but it's far from it. Not only are singles and EPs a great entryway for anyone to get into a new artist, but it also gives pre-existing listeners a nice teaser for potential future material that the artist might be cooking up. EPs
Yes,
also
bro, you should see singles and EPs as like like since he's showing gaming shit, right? Like the demo disc you would get on your GameCube or your PlayStation, where it's like, here's a bunch of fucking demos. Yeah, there's more. You just gotta get the game, but there's a lot more.
allow artists to get way more crazy and experimental without risking low album sales, which make or break the reputation of a lot of artists, especially those under major labels where performance is the end-all be-all, for better or worse. If you've never given EPs a try, I highly encourage you to do so. Here's just a few EPs on screen that I personally love going back to time and time again, and I'm sure you'll hear me spew my love on these projects in one way or another in future videos. Of course, singles also have a ton of benefits for the artists too. They're powerful pieces of advertisement for the artist to bring in new fans in the form of radio plays, music videos, and more recently streaming services and playlist fodder. It's also a great way to promote a future album, as most singles are just a song taken out of said album, with some exceptions of course. Plus, it's usually the easiest way for newer artists to achieve chart success, and a gateway for a lot of potentially interesting collaborations between different artists. In general, singles and EPs are important, but albums are the real backbone for any musical artist. And I feel that, again, as every year passes, I'm seeing less and less people listening to complete albums from start to finish, which I think is just a bit of a shame. Not only are there still a ton of artists whose entire catalogs revolve around things like concept albums, which again can only really be enjoyed in an album playthrough setting, but you as a music listener can miss out on some potentially fantastic music that you never knew existed. I remember I begged my friend who loves Nujabes to sit down and listen to the Metaphorical Music album from start to finish after I heard that he just listens to the more popular singular songs in his catalog, and afterwards ended up falling in love with most of the non-single tracks on that album instead. Listening to an album all the way through is truly a unique experience and will definitely change the way you listen to music in what I think is the best way possible. Of course, this is just a suggestion, not a demand. At the end of the day, your music listening journey is entirely personal, and you can listen to music however you like. I'm not your dad. But you never know, your next favorite song might be that one deep cut in an album you've been avoiding to listen to for all those years.
What a good fucking video. And he's not wrong. Like, a lot of my favorite songs are like, one of my favorite songs of all time is like the House That Doubt Built by A Day to Remember. You never see anybody talking about that fucking song. You hear them talk about the downfall of us all and like fucking have faith in me and shit.